You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today brought on a longtime friend, Brad Dey from Dey's End Consulting, helping tons of brands out in the network. And when we think about it from the standpoint of everything that's going on with Shopify, he's one of the, top 10 people in Shopify across the space as a whole. Just had a ton of great conversations, and this is one where we're entering this season where everybody's thinking right now about profitability, or what tools we should have on the back end around, how do we managing returns? How do we driving more sales? What are all those different things that really matter on the back end that we finally get a chance to address a little bit? And so anyways, Brad, I'm going to kick it over to you. If you want to do, just bring us up to speed of yourself a little bit, Dey's End Consulting, that'd be awesome. And then we'll kind of jump into the conversation. Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds perfect. Thanks for having me on today, Aaron. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a week. My name is Brad Dey. I'm from Dey's End Consulting. We're a strategic, boutique consulting agency that works exclusively in the Shopify ecosystem. Have been the one of 10. I'm actually one of 12 of their partner consultants. Shopify has their agencies. They call them SIs, strategic integrators. They have their app makers, and then there's 12 individuals or partner consultants that are closely wired in with their team, have access to the betas and product roadmap and the personnel. And we've been operating in that capacity for 3, maybe going on 4 years now. And so keeps me very well versed in the space in terms of who's coming into the ecosystem, what people are trying to do differently. And conveniently, last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, Shopify had their Enterprise Summit in Los Angeles. So a big event, not quite Unite levels, which is what they used to have up in Toronto, but they had, 600 of their partners, individuals, I think across like 300 different partners, and then 125 Shopify personnel were there. They call them Shopafolk. And it was just a great 2-day conference to go through and talk through a number of different efforts. So we'll definitely be talking through some of those topics today.
Yeah, awesome. I do want to dive into some of those because there's a lot of buzz around Shopify right now. There's the buy with Prime side of things. There's, but we're Q4, right? This is crunch time. A lot of people going into code freeze. But from your standpoint, you sit in an interesting spot from not the agency standpoint that's looking to spend a lot of people's money, not the I want to do constant revisions to your website and build it all, but this consultant standpoint of, hey, I'm going to come in and take a look at the overall structure of the website, the integrations, what's happening. And are there things what is top of mind for you when you're stepping into a brand and you're taking a look at it? There are common things that people run into, and there are common things that people are missing if they should check out right now as we're 2 weeks into Q4.
Yeah. I sit in a unique spot. So many of the times, I guess the easiest way for people to think about what, me and my firm do is solution architect is what it is. And it's essentially an e-com specific CTO where we'll go in and look at the stack and look at all the systems that, many times Shopify, obviously in the middle of a hub and spoke, but what are all the systems that are pulling off of it? What are the data elements that are flowing, everywhere? And honestly, one of the first things that we do is just the ability to document that. It's amazing. If you have not put that in, especially with as, e-com and you have workforce and people moving, to not be able to document and understand, here's where this information is coming from. That's honestly one of the places that we always start, because the other piece of that is Shopify, its APIs are always evolving. You've got different vendors that are making different connections. And so I find many times that I go through that exercise and someone is using a middleware, whether it's Zapier or something else, is not needed anymore. There's been improved connection. So they did a stopgap temporary thing that worked, and then they're missing out on incremental functionality that's now been available because guess what? An integration has been built between those two systems. And so that's one of the first things that honestly that we always go to of like, just show me a tech diagram of what's your ERP, where's master of inventory, who are you, where are payments getting pushed to? So, we tend to focus on what I call the non-sexy parts of executing e-commerce. It's the order management. That's the stuff I get excited. I know the front end is going to work. Obviously there's efforts that we do to help position and equip them. But we get more excited about returns, payment charges, refunds, store credits, all of those different pieces that really have to be functioning and firing and be what I like to say, in a high performing, repeatable manner in order for, that return customer to come. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to be chasing that new customer over and over again. And, that's just crushing.
Yeah. How many times do people have it right or getting close to it?
I
mean, it's not kind of an unfair question, I guess, only from the standpoint of like e-commerce has just blown up over the past few years, right? And so it's kind of my guess is not a lot, but it's not necessarily a reflection on people who don't know what they're doing. It's just the people that have been asked to do way more than they're actually capable or have the time to do.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I made the comparison the other day to obviously being a realtor back in the day, right? When the mortgage rates were really low, guess what? Homes are flying off the shelf. People were self-servicing, and using the new tools, and would just show up and be like, "Hey, here are the 5 houses that I want to go look at." Like, it changed the function of the realtor, and it wasn't very hard to sell homes when mortgage rates are at historic lows, and there's a lot of inventory. And I think it's good to have these kind of market corrections where, I guess, it's obviously being a strategic consultant, I don't want it to be too easy to do everything. But I think this has been good because it's honestly allowed for some of those necessary disciplines to come back into play. I want to talk about 2 topics in particular. One is 3PL, and the second thing being inventory management. When you're a e-commerce firm and the macro environment is great and stuff is flying off the shelves, you don't have to go through these traditional, really, really critical pieces of knowing your cost structure. What's your planning? And I'm oversimplifying here, but I think you'll get the idea. And what's your cost of your 3PL? Because this stuff is just flying off the shelf if you've done a good job in creating a product and cultivating a segment that has demand. Now with things a little bit tighter, you're seeing these more traditional activities are needed. And so that kind of inventory management, and by that I mean, hey, I'm looking at all of my produced inventory on a shelf at my 3PL. What are the products that are going to sell that, evergreen, that continue, that we're known for? We have a great USP around, or these are the fashion colors, and these are the ones that, we have to move through because guess what? We've ordered and we have new ones coming in, and we only have a finite amount of rack space at our 3PL before, maybe we trigger, the next cost structure. So for some of these smaller brands, those activities I'm speaking to, yes, the big $100 million brands absolutely have that down, and they have planners and inventory management and ERP reports. But, for the digitally native vertical brands that are 25 to 75 million, they're having to make sure that they do some of those activities because they're getting some swollen 3PL bills that are coming out. They're obviously having to go through some of these exercises of inventory planning and what are the ones that we should discount first in our, markdowns for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like, those are the activities that are happening now and really need to be happening for a good performing business.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It's been super easy. But now, especially as things are slowing down, from what I've seen, there's huge drop off on just the brands I'm talking to in September as a whole. And if you look at what happened on Prime Day, the one earlier in the year, not the one that happened just a couple of days ago, but brands moved a lot of product, but they didn't make any more money, which means heavily discounting. Yep. And that's the other side, right? Hey, I need to move a lot, but I also need to discount a lot. And the complexity behind doing that without losing your shirt is crazy.
Yep. Yeah, it's traditionally been an exercise. Honestly, the ones I still see it being done in Excel. I mean, I laugh because it's like, I still look at, I've seen this at a couple different places now, and it's like, hey, here's how many units, here's, how many units per order. These are the ones that we know that we've got 4 years of history in demonstrating that we can sell on this particular one. And you also have to have a nimble workforce to A, pull those reports, B, read those reports, and C, affect the change. And, in larger organizations, that's a team of people. Smaller organizations, Shopify, some of the smaller Shopify brands, that's maybe one person, and they're like looking at the product sold report. They're looking at it and, had done some work on, here's what the targets are. And guess what? We're not selling enough of these. And you know what? We're going to have to go to a markdown, which means you already have your markdowns ready. You have an export, a Matrixify report loaded to mark those down. That gets consumed. You merchandise that page, to tell a color story. You get it out, coordinated with an email, and you go. Like, that execution has to be so quick in this day and age, and it cannot be multiple days. And I think that's the magic of, as we've had a couple more Black Friday, Cyber Mondays, we sit here and we know we've got the good ones have an idea, like, okay, when does this merchant move? And making sure that your deliverability is on top and that your emails are ready to go. And I mean, it does nothing if you done a markdown and you can't get your email out to tell people about it. So it's just this very intricate dance that, there's a nice buzz because people know we're about to come into that. We obviously had, as you mentioned, the Prime Day the other day. Most of the sprints, we've got a couple more sprints left before we have we're in code freeze, and now it's execution mode. And you're working on your interaction models and your connections, and hey, what's the amount of returns that will come even at your current return rate. So I think that's the nice hum that was palpable last week at the Shopify Summit. It's a lot of the dialogue with me and, some of my peers that, do similar things and kind of get excited. It's like, okay, you're like the race and you're in the corral where you're just kind of like you're moving towards the line a little bit and you're lacing up your shoes. Yeah. And I'm making a running reference. So
yeah. No.
But that's kind of the feeling right now. So I think, that's the piece that, this is why we do what we do. It is the time for us to do it. There's very little room for error because you have these small windows to hit. And I get excited about it, as you can tell.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I'm also thinking, as we're going through this, really the title for this episode should be Winning on Shopify in Q4. That's, we're going to go back and make sure, because that's what I'm hearing from you is kind of what we're pulling out, which is, hey, take that inventory, know where it's at, know what you have to move. It is, hey, well, what are the systems you have to have in place? Email, SMS, how are you letting people know? Who cares if you mark it down? You can't just hope that somebody happens to fall upon it and move that inventory for you, because it's more than just, like you're saying, it's more than just selling the product. It's also getting it out a warehouse, removing the holding costs, freeing up space for the next round, especially if you're, if you're very seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. And, any place in the fashion, you get the next round coming in. But let's talk a little bit about returns. And then I think that's a great way to focus this is what should brands be thinking about to win in Q4? And we tackled a few of those. Let's talk about returns a little bit. How do you see people managing that? Because, returns are an issue across the board, especially if you're in fashion, especially if it's a gift giving season, which it is, and people don't like it and they want to ship it back. On the fashion side, it's, hey, I'm going to order 2 or 3 sizes and just ship 1 back. Ship 2, however many, and just keep 1, I should say. But it's a big thing. What's interesting about that is also I'm a data guy as well, and that piece
it clouds the data a lot when you're doing that activity. So I reference, hey, these are the products that we see in multiple units per order. If you have somebody that ordered 3 sizes and then returns 2 of them, that's a single purchase order that now looks through. You obviously see a second transaction. You've got the refund, you have the store credit, you've got another. It's like that whole exercise really, really can cloud up your data unnecessarily because of what it was in the function. So, what people can do to get out in front of making sure that the returns, and there's great vendors in the space that have really nice integrations with Shopify. Returnly's in there, Loop returns in the ilk that have made it really nice to execute against it. But what I moved one more upstream with is like, how do we prevent that activity? How do we get that confidence with the consumer? And a company that we've been doing some work just started with that kind of takes a different approach, and everyone's trying to do AI these days. It's like, how can you do AI? And it's a vendor by the name of TrueFit, TRUE space FIT, has traditionally been above Shopify, enterprise brands. You're talking Banana Republics, Gaps, that ilk. And they worked very hard to rewrite their code and have moved down to Shopify as of 2 months ago. And what it does is it's a crowdsourced size guide. And so they have a database of people. And so if I go in to buy a shirt on a brand I don't know, I can go in there and say, all right, well, I wear a large shirt with Eddie Bauer. I wear a large shirt with Nike. What size should I do here? And it prevents what the technical term is size bracketing. And it prevents people ordering the large, the extra large, and then having to return it. You have confidence from the data. So that's one of the really kind of unique ones that has recently come into and having a really great adoption in the Shopify space. They have a 30-day free trial, but it's just a piece of software that, the size guides are an antiquated tool. Like, that's an old way of like pulling up an old table that says, what's my waist size? What's this? Like, there's a lot different constructs here than that. And so that's one of the new tools that people have been looking into that allows technology to solve a problem in the past. And the vendors, there's some case studies out there that it does show reduced returns because that buyer has confidence. Like, they know, hey, somebody else, why can't I draft off the knowledge of the people that have been before me?
Yeah, and in reality, people don't really want to order 3 and then have the hassle of shipping 2 back. Oh, they don't.
Yeah, and then think about
want to write the first, especially if it's a gift. Like, I just want it to work.
And then now you have the boxes, unnecessary boxes that are going everywhere. So there's a carbon footprint to that. There's the time for you to go to the place to ship it back. There's the at your 3PL or elsewhere, you have to receive those, inspect those goods, see them, put them back up on the website. Like, it takes all of that stuff off of the table, both on the merchant side and the consumer side. Especially if it's unnecessary. I mean, there's certain things that, they're unique and, personal preference or whatnot. But, if the vast majority of those can be avoided and that consumer can be like, yep, I know that this is what I'm going to get. This is Cuts clothing, the shirt. And I'm like, you know what? That's going to be a large. And I have confidence around that. So that's one of the new tools that, people are seeing. And, looking at your returns in a full cycle to then say, gosh, the data is there. What's nice about it is if you do it right, everyone is returning the extra larges, or gosh, the shirt, we're not consistent. And the good brands are taking that information, feathering it back into their, their planning cycle and saying, to the designers of, hey, listen, we're inconsistent on this shirt. People don't know whether it's a large or an extra large or whatnot. And that's when you then can move way upstream and hopefully produce the right amount of quantity to meet the demand, right? That's all, they're trying to avoid having to then discount that product and move it, and obviously avoid it going to a landfill. So,
right, which literally got back into the first part of the conversation of, hey, I've got this inventory, I got to move it.
Yeah. And I think resale has done some nice things. I think there's been a lot of headway in that space. There's a vendor by the name of Recurate. I did a work for Outer Known with a resale product called Outer Worn, which is catchy. And it allows, for people to return products. And, we're starting to put some of the gently used returns are showing up on there. So it's another way to just move through those products, and honestly, could, introduce a lower price point for entry, into it. Yes, in their case, their hero product, gosh, if somebody can, get into it at half of the price, it allows you to pull someone in closer to the brand, and hopefully, the whole cycle goes well, ultimately move them to a full price product down the line. Once you told your brand story and they've experienced it.
So you're naming a couple of different vendors, and just has me thinking about, the past few years as every new tech startup was funded, and everybody was pitched everything, and AI hits the market. And then now we're at a spot where, some of these people, they're not getting the second round of funding, cost of capital is higher, right? And so there's a lot of people that are just, the cash is dried up. They're not around anymore. Are you doing a lot of like tech stack audits? Like, what does that look like? Because I'm thinking that's another thing for Q4 specifically is, hey, how am I going to the back end and looking at who I really need and who I don't, who's around, who's not, who's just taking money? Like I can't remember who you'd said earlier, that maybe the APIs are better, you just don't need them anymore. But what is that a common thing?
And I think that's the apps can be sitting there, the integrations can be sitting there. People have these kind of recurring charges that are there. So I've seen, I'm using an example, it's not but like report writing, right? Like there's apps that are in there. The Shopify reporting is getting better. It's a little bit challenged. And so many times I'll go in to look at the app stack at a vendor, and they've got 3 different reporting vendor, platforms in there. It's because the one guy was generating the finance reports for taxes, and then this one is product sold because it's going to, someone that's executing the email campaign. And you've got someone in retail that just wants to see a report on what's sold at this retail location. And it's just an example of Shopify makes it a little bit too easy to install those sometimes. And it just gets locked into the machine and it's just spit out. And then I go in there and I'm like, you have 58 apps in there, like what's going on in here? It's a simple exercise. It does, typically then initiates a conversation with those parts of the organization of like, you realize that, guess what? Shopify now has, and many times these people have now moved on to like, oh yeah, there's a product sold report in Shopify. And yet that app is just sitting in there. And so, that obviously the other thing is people think, oh, we uninstalled it. And it's like, it's still there, still paying it. There's some tech debt that's incurred for that's affecting you. So yeah, absolutely going in and even just going through that exercise of logging it and, after as a fast follow to documenting your highest level tech stack. What are the apps? What are the ones that are pulling out of there? And many times, there's opportunity to almost fund the whole thing just in, okay, well, we just did it in the reduction, of these apps. And then unfortunately, what flows off of that as well as access. And you'll see, employees that are no longer there, unfortunately. And, like things like that are tied to a Google Drive that's tied to this person. Like I see some crazy things in terms of, how things are, it's tied to this email account and that person's no longer here. And it's like, come on, this is not in a good position for handing off.
Do people bring you in just for those audits? Like I'm thinking everybody who listens should just ping it and just say, come in here. I don't have time right now. It's Q4. I don't have time, but come in and do this for me and just give me a report. And then they can take it back. And I mean, you could do the work, but they could maybe do the work too.
Exactly.
So everybody that's listening, right? Brad Dey, DEY, right?
Exactly. And it's just, like I said, many times it's almost a self-funding because you're like, here's the stuff that you can just remove and obviously, reduce those expenses. But it's a good exercise because again, personnel change, I get it. I'm not judging these people. I know because of what we're coming through, they were just cranking and making sure, oh, we need to have this. And oh gosh, we need to add this. And oh, this was a free trial that I clicked on. And then in any other world, you know what, that would still be there, but the ecosystem is turning so quick.
So fast.
It's a function of Shopify and like, hey, here's our new APIs. Hey, here's what it is. And that person maybe in that week was working on something else. And so as teams are a little bit leaner now, it happens to the best of them. And I understand it, but the good news is it's real quick to remediate. We have a structured way of kind of walking through that. And it allows you to also bring up to some conversations of having, okay, who's using this information? What are they using it for? And many times you could surface somebody else that could use that exact same piece of information, but for a different purpose.
Yeah, well, they need somebody from the outside to come in that knows it and has done it 100 times, right? That's why you have a business, right? I mean, that's the reality is everybody is moving so fast and right, the turnover. And there's also been this middle layer that's been removed right after the boom and things are coming back down. The middle layer has been removed. Yeah, people who are just trying to execute. And again, like you're saying, they're not doing anything malicious. No. They're just moving so fast. Yeah, I need to try this. Somebody told me about this free trial. I tried it. It was kind of okay. I didn't follow up on it, but now it automatically kicked in. I don't even use it. And I don't even know that they're not being malicious. They're just, they're actually doing what you want them to do, which is trial and error and try new things and see what happens. Yeah. But then on the back end, then you don't know at that point in time, what is it tied into? Is there somebody else using it? What if I turn this off? You know, is somebody else going to freak out? You know, is somebody else using it?
I mean,
they don't ever turn it off.
Yeah, and then sometimes it is that of like you turn it off and you just kind of wait. You're just like, okay, wait. And then it's like 2 days later, it's like, hey, I get this emailed to me at this place and I didn't know. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, that's the last resort to see what that is, but it's a fun exercise to kind of do. I'm like, all right, you disregarded the 5 emails that were around this, and now we know. And please make sure that we're tuned in. And while you're here, let's look at who's on your team. So it's a good exercise, and it doesn't have to be a massive effort to go through it. It's a 1 week, 2 week, just kind of a diagnostic. Here's what the actions are to go off of it. And then everyone's that much more informed. Because I think that's the other piece of this is when I talk about a structured, high performing team, it's just like many times there's perfectly good reason of like, yep, we're using it for this. And there's just a level of confidence that, gosh, things are rolling along. I understand that this system is working to this one, and you go and you're just that much more like looked at it, check, and then come back in a year, and have this as an annual exercise to then go back through and see what it is. Because, I see B2B apps, that were in there, how people were executing B2B, and it's like, yep, nope, that's part of this. Or people using the old wholesale channel in the Shopify store. And I'm like, yeah, that's not there anymore. So it's just a function of it. And it does allow to just create some good dialogue and make sure that you have a performing website. Because, once you have that, I like to say all the time, and the people that work with me get like an order is just demand. That's just a demand. Like that is an order that they created. Congrats to the marketing team. Congrats to the site conversion. You have an order. And then I get excited about everything that has to happen after that in terms of a successful pick of the order. Obviously then getting the order, can you cultivate a review out of the order? Can you, set yourself up to be in a good position for a second transaction? Did the data flow all the way through nicely through all of your systems? Okay, do you have a repeat customer? Like all of that, that's the piece that has to happen in order for you to, have that, active returning customer segment.
It's interesting, in the past and these, winning on Shopify in Q4, just winning in Q4, a lot of it's been like all the new tech tools that are out there and things you can use and leverage. And what we're talking about here, which I love, is this recurring theme of just back to the basics. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's just do the basics right, and the rest of it will follow. We don't have to hire, we don't have to hire like 10 new people. No. We don't have to get 15 new platforms. We don't have to do this or that. It's basically, let's focus on the basics and let's do our marketing. Let's do our marketing really, really well. And, that's going to be the biggest key to winning in Q4. Are there other new releases in Shopify or the new platforms? Like what's what are you excited about?
I mean, the big thing Shopify is pushing right now is the one-page checkout. So last year was checkout extensibility, which is that was the black box for the longest time. That's Shopify special sauce. And they're like, here's our checkout. And you'd go into checkout, and no matter what website you looked at, you knew you were in Shopify checkout at that point. It had the same look and feel. You had the banner across the top. The font was the same. You're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
And I would talk to my friends, like, what is Shopify? I'm like, when you go to on this, when you're shopping it here, and they're like, oh yeah, it does kind of jump to that. Like Shopify opened up checkout and through checkout extensibility and allowed you to, I'm not talking as simple as changing colors and putting more brand stuff in there. It allowed to open it up. That's when they said, we want all checkouts to happen in here. If you were executing a subscription up until a year ago, you would actually leave. You would go to Recharge. You would go to Order Groove. You would go to Global E if you're doing international. And then you would come back to Shopify to finish that. And that got, kind of ruled because it took things out of their purview. And so now it's all happening within the Shopify checkout, that process. It traditionally was a 3-page checkout. Well, now they've gone even further and they have a 1-page checkout that they're rolling out. You have to be on checkout extensibility to have that step. Kind of eliminated some of the liquid pages, not trying to nerd out. But then you can now go to this 1-page checkout, which they were very vocal last week about this is even better. We've enhanced it. It's even quicker. And so that's one of the exciting things that people, I would encourage you to talk to your dev agency. And if you haven't done it already, like, hey, did we do checkout extensibility? Because that is a precursor. You need to have done that. And then you can get to this 1-page checkout. So that's anything that can reduce friction, accelerate through that process is great. You obviously can, while you're there, add some of your, be more consistent on your brand voice, reorganize things accordingly. Some of the neat functions I've seen in there, again, are in subscription execution. Hey, here's a one-time purchase. Oh, would you like to make this a subscription? A perfect place to ask for that. You can do that now and there. You're $22 away from free shipping. Would you like to add one more item here to do that? Like, these are nice, natural pieces of where people are in that purchase decision, without interrupting, to allow you to do that. Address correction, which is something simple but very valuable in the process. They're publishing some incremental APIs there to let people do some address correction as they go through that process, which is valuable. Do you want to pick up in store versus local pickup versus ship it to you, which is even better because it eliminates the shipping, takes some coordination. So these are just natural things that are happening. So I think that's one of the key pieces that people are very excited about, to put into that process. And that's one that people are looking at a lot. I'm trying to think of some of the others that are coming through. Obviously, pushing other products that are aligned. We noticed that you bought the shirt and you got the shorts. Why not buy this bundle instead? Which is just a really nice a way to do that. So that's another kind of natural piece there.
Are there one thing, like, any questions? I always like to give people opportunity. Any questions for me? And then also, are there other, platforms that you're excited about? I mean, TikTok has come up a bunch.
Let's go to there in a second. I would love on the buy with Prime. I know that you have done some work in that space. I've seen a couple people that have thrown up, let's call them basic Shopify sites. We did one of these this year. It was a top Amazon vendor. They do home goods, and they wanted to have a Shopify site as well, obviously for some different margin. Obviously the zero-party data that would be available, maybe do some additional colorways beyond what they're able to offer on Amazon. So what are you seeing, or are you hearing chatter in your circle around kind of the Shopify moving to the buy with Prime and what that looks like?
Yeah, I have a lot of people excited about it. A year ago, no. Just talking with them, even a year ago when you were saying, well, hey, how do you, what is the increase in conversion rate? We couldn't, they're like, hey, we can't really share that data quite yet. Do you have a tie-in with Shopify? No, we don't. Can it happen for the vendors, the 1P side on Amazon? Well, we're working on it. It was like this thing that they had launched in typical Amazon fashion. I'm going to launch it, minimum viable product, and I'm going to hear everything about it that people don't like. And then we're going to bring it back. And we actually just did a webinar actually with Jordan, who's been on the podcast before with Coalition Technologies. And
yeah, absolutely. That's great.
It was just a great conversation on that side around, hey, like they fixed a lot of stuff. 1P, 3P on Amazon, right? The integration with Shopify, they're sharing how much they can help with conversion rates. But on the flip side is I've talked to a few different brands now who've seen a significant increase in sales, especially around like Prime days. Because Amazon will actually drive traffic then to your direct-to-consumer site. They're doing that actively right now to help move and promote that program as a whole. And people are seeing a significant bump. And one of the neatest things I think about that's happening right now, for those of you who don't know, so Buy with Prime, anything that you have in an Amazon warehouse or you want to put in there, you can put the Buy with Prime. It'll use the Amazon Pay side of it. But Amazon from its warehouse will go then individually pick, pack, ship it, and, get the 1-2 day shipping benefit, but, it's running through their warehouse rather than yours. So it's really interesting as we get to, the holiday season here and you get that shut off or when people will, when FedEx, UPS will come pick up your product and ship it. If it's through Buy with Prime on your direct to consumer site, you still get the 1 to 2 day shipping promise out of Amazon, which is really, really significant. Yeah. If you think about, after December 12th or 13th, when FedEx, UPS are like, hey, we're done. Like, we're not picking up from you anymore. We're only picking up from Amazon and Walmart, Target, that type of stuff.
You still get a couple more out of it.
You still get another 10 days almost if they shut it off in 12. You still get it there by, Christmas for sure. So they fixed a lot of things. There's still apprehension just because of the relationship on, the traditional marketplace and vendor side of Amazon, the lack of communication with brands, or trimming down of vendor managers. But, I think they got a shot, and I wouldn't have said that a year ago, but I'm going to say that right now, that a lot of brands, especially mid-size, smaller and mid-size, they're already selling on the platform. Maybe they're digitally native. The current 3PL is mediocre. Like, why would I have it at a 3PL when I could also have it, if I also have it in an Amazon fulfillment center and they can pick, pack, ship it? Now, cost, everything's going to play out over time, and it will be very interesting. You go back to the old phrase, or the old quote from Jeff Bezos, who said, hey, your margin is my opportunity. It'll be very interesting how fees go up over time in that space, if they do, once they've got people locked in. So anyways, it's a very interesting space, and it's just starting to retake off right now. So I would encourage anybody, take a look at it. If you did a year ago,
it's easy to add.
Yeah, you did a year ago, it wasn't quite right, and you saw them kind of back off a little bit. Now it might be worth trying again. So,
well, speaking of people watching each other closely, I'd say the TikTok and Shopify is a similar one. Right. So you have this thing called TikTok Shop that is out there. It got rolled out 2.5 weeks ago, widespread. I've been working with a client called DAP Sports. We've been on it for 7 months now. I've been one, and I'm very proud. We're a top 5 on the platform. And it's this thing called TikTok Shop. The client I just referenced is doing live shopping of trading cards. So collectibles, there's certain segments that are doing very well out the gate, have been pretty well publicized that live shopping in particular is not at the level as where it is in other regions, EMEA and APAC region. But there's certain categories that are working really well. Home goods, as I shared, are doing it. Collectibles, trading cards, figuring like that piece. Luxury handbags, for whatever reason, are also doing really well. And I think the key is that you're looking at places where you can interact with the product itself. And so I've watched luxury handbags for probably way too long, but there's something there. In the past, that's the bag that I want, Bodega handbag or Gucci handbag. Let's just make it easy. And then you would have this send me an email to show me the certificate of authenticity. And then, all right, send that back and start this multi-day thing where obviously in live shopping, they'll hold it up to the camera and you can do that whole kind of education and review in seconds. And people have certainly gotten very, used to that, or at least seen how that works. So the point is there's been a number of kind of segments that are doing very well. TikTok Shop is embracing the opportunity and saying, hey, we want to cultivate this as well. It has a content management system. It has an order management system. It has shipping fulfillment. Like there are all these elements that are in TikTok Shop that are certainly Shopify Lite. At least they're obviously getting more people on the platform, and it's that place of what are the new features that you need. And so we've been doing work in that space as I shared with our client, but now we're going to be working with TikTok Shop closer. Because there's this, gosh, we hear about this thing. Do I need a Shopify site? Can I use my existing Shopify site? Can I do a TikTok Shop in my Shopify site? How do we push orders, products? And so we've been very active in that space now. And I think it's incrementality at this point. I think it's one of those people don't want to miss out on it. They want to make sure that they can understand it and have it. So we've been talking to a number of brands that are in those categories that I just shared that are like, we'd be crazy not to try this. Like, it's
what's
not
the
a
harm in trying.
Exactly. It's not a massive list to get it set up, or set up your shop and have it there, and just have your place. You got it. You got your setup, and then you can, test it out to work around it. So we've been leading some interesting efforts with some people that are, forward thinking enough to be like, let's get it up there, because I'm items in a $60 AOV. I'd say like $40 to $80 AOV absolutely can execute in this format. And it doesn't have to be live shopping as well. It could be, hey, we're going to push a recording, a small video out and people can shop the video. We just happen to be with our client. We're working at the very forefront of that, 24/7 live shopping, orders coming into, we have 9 different TikTok shops now that are, aligned by channel. This is sports cards. This one is doing Pokemon cards. This one is doing NFL. And then we're pulling all of those together, and me and my team are leading that integration and working through that process. So it's a very exciting kind of new channel in it, and it's not a massive lift, and you can kind of be in a position to really, help it take off, or be in a position to really be able to quickly move when it does take off.
Wow. Right. Everybody's looking, everybody's looking for, another marketplace. That's what they're doing, right? Like, how can I be wherever? And TikTok traditionally, it's just been a driver to other channels, right?
Yeah. And it's product discovery. I think they have obviously a very natural, it's a different audience for sure. But you can, work in these very natural product discovery places, and, their algorithms are sending traffic to you based on what, an algorithm that's being used in other parts of the world. It's like, yep, this person is interested in this. So it takes a little bit of refinement. It takes reading the data. It takes knowing the teams at TikTok Shop to kind of work through that and finesse it based on what you need. And we're in the process of, working through in a tighter partnership with them to be able to help people get on and get going much quicker.
Yeah, it's the new age QVC, HSN, right? It's people for the longest time have wanted to see stuff in real time and be able to buy it. I see it, I see the offer, I want to get it now. Like, it's just a new platform for doing it. It's going to work. I can't see it not working with especially the level that it's accessible to people. And you're right, it's just interesting how people are using TikTok even as it's a product research channel at times, but also a discovery channel. The TikTok made me buy it trend is huge. So,
yep. Yeah, it's fun to kind of to be in there. And, when you get some of these smart forward thinking innovation, we're talking to a toy company, and they're looking at some live events that they want to do. They have a well-established audience in the gaming community. And it's like, guess what? Figurines and release dates and being able to, to do that around competitions and be able to transact. I mean, it's really, really moving fast. And so, yeah, it's funny. I made the QVC reference in an audience the other day, and they're like, "What? Like, what's that?" And it's like, and by all accounts, I don't think QVC or HSN has done a good job, but it's still the reference point. It's like a paradigm. You're like, "Oh yeah, like QVC," and then this current workforce, so like, I'm not following you. What do you mean by QVC? And I'm like, okay, well, there's this thing you used to do. Like, to call in. And...
Oh yeah. You're like, so it was a cell phone? No, it's actually like it was tied to the wall. Aging ourselves, my friend.
It's still the best reference though. Like, oh yeah, like QVC, and you're like, oh yeah, I got it. Like direct response. So, having worked in that space, I had a 15-year career at Capital One Bank before I got into my own independent consulting here. So, I'm clearly been around long enough to remember QVC and have participated in some of that.
That's awesome. Well, we've got we're just getting to the end here of time. Brad, it's been super fun. This is awesome. We have to do this more often. I think people will find it incredibly valuable. Again, Brad Dey from Days End Consulting. So it's DEYSEND. Is it just daysend.com? And reach out to him on LinkedIn. Just a great resource for a ton of brands in the network, and comes highly recommended. And just in a different spot as a whole, that looks at your website a lot differently, not from the dev side, not from the marketing side, but hey, how do we make this thing really work? So, good, Brad. Thanks so much for your time today. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right, everyone have a great season.